I'm Tammy, and my team and I have been selling real estate in the upstate of South Carolina for over 2 decades. Now, if you're wondering where the upstate is, think Greenville, South Carolina, and its suburbs. Maybe you're a college football fan and you've heard of Clemson, the Clemson Tigers, TR, locals call it TR, it's also known as Travelers Rest, or Greer, or Taylors, or Malden, or Easley, or Anderson, or Pendleton, or Honeypath. All these great suburbs that are located here in the upstate of South Carolina. Now, when people come to shop our area, I typically hear a couple of things. Tammy, I really want a big yard. I don't want to be on top of my neighbor. I've heard we can find that in South Carolina. I want an acre or a half acre. And then they tell me their budget. And while real estate is super affordable in South Carolina, I immediately start to sweat bullets because I know that to be where they want to be and how to get that land, it's going to be pretty tough, or they're going to have to maybe give and take on some of the things they want. Maybe the home will be a little bit older or need a little bit of work, but there's going to have to be some concession, or maybe they're willing to drive a little further. Maybe they're not right in Greenville, or maybe they're not 20 minutes from Greenville, or maybe it's 20 minutes in miles, but not 20 minutes in traffic. All kinds of things to consider. Also, then they talk about real estate property taxes. They're super affordable in our area, but some areas are more affordable than others. And then people, especially my friends from Florida, say, I don't want to live where there's an HOA. And usually what that really means is I'm coming from a place with a very strict HOA. And while we have a few strict HOAs in the upstate of South Carolina, we also have a lot that are not strict. Mostly they're maintaining the entrance. They're making sure that, no one replaces the toilet and throws the old one in the front yard, that kind of stuff. So today we're going to talk about the area in general and some tips and tricks for understanding what our market is like and how you can find a home with a bigger backyard and maybe avoid an HOA. Stay tuned. All right, so today we're going to talk about the upstate of South Carolina, but we're also going to talk, just general supply and demand and how prices work. Now, as a very general statement, real estate in South Carolina is super affordable. Now, I don't know where you live, but for perspective, what might be $500,000 in our market could be over $1 million in another market, like California, some places in Florida, New York. So by comparison to those really expensive areas, our real estate is super affordable. Now, if you didn't know this, if there's a really exciting town, like you've heard of Greenville, South Carolina, maybe you've heard of Clemson, South Carolina, the more in-demand an area is, the more well-known it is, expect the property values to be notably higher. Now, when I say notably higher, it also depends on what it is that you want. For instance, a lot of Greenville, the old money, the very established area, these homes are over 50 years old. Some are newer, some are older, but you don't have huge footprints, meaning huge lots. And that's because when these properties were built, they were established in the city limits. Homes were much closer together for a variety of reasons. So it's not often, although sometimes it happens, but it's infrequent that you're going to find an acre, 2 acres, 3 acres. Now, do those properties exist? Yes. However, one thing I've observed over the years, as families really tend to sell those properties to other family members, they tend to inherit them or they sell them to them directly. So a lot of times we don't see them come on the market. So one of the big things we hear, because people envision these pictures they see of the Blue Ridge Mountains, or they just know South Carolina is a little more spread out, they're anticipating that they're gonna have these half acre or acre lots, and you can have them, but I want to reverse a little back into, or rewind, 2019. So in 2019, that was a banner year in real estate for the upstate of South Carolina. In fact, we were all dreading 2020. We did not know about the upcoming pandemic, but we thought real estate will never be this good. It's just been such a fun time. Sellers have been profitable. Buyers have had affordable rates. Real estate's been really good. People are getting into homes and they're taking part in the American dream. Now, in 2019, we already had a shortage of inventory. And to put that more simply, what that means is there were a lot of people who wanted to buy homes and there weren't enough homes for sale. In fact, builders were starting to build. And that was huge for us because that's really when we broke free. When we had the housing crisis that came after 2007, overall, the upstate of South Carolina fared much better. Don't try to figure out this math, but in general economics, it is healthy for a market to grow in value or appreciate by about 4% a year, okay? It can be a little bit more, maybe up to 7, possibly a little less, like 3%. But anything over that, like if you start to appreciate by 10%, 15, 21%, what happens is, yeah, it's really good when the market's strong, but if all of a sudden we take a turn, everybody falls really hard. So these more expensive states like Florida and California and New York really took a hit when their market shifted because they were appreciating by 10 and 20% a year. Meanwhile, in the Upstate, Greenville was probably the fastest growing city, and it was appreciating by about 4% a year, and the surrounding suburbs were appreciating by anywhere from like 2 to 3% a year. So all that means is we did not fall as hard. But what we did see is that new construction totally dried up. Builders were going belly up left and right, and even the ones that were not going belly up, well, we already had too many houses for sale in 2007, 8, 9, 10, 11. So they just weren't trying to build because there wasn't the same demand. So about the time builders start building, that's when our economy becomes super healthy. And then especially in the upstate of South Carolina, so people start moving here, and very quickly we realized we did not have enough homes for all the buyers who wanted to live in them. So that was a great thing. In 2019, sellers were very profitable, new construction was taking off. Then 2020 hit. Now, I'm not sharing any political beliefs, but what I can tell you is there were at least 4 states where it felt like there was a mass exodus and they were coming to South Carolina. Particularly when we would meet with buyers, they would say to myself and to my team, hey, we're moving here because we are in states right now where due to the pandemic, they have completely shut us down. We are no longer able to run our businesses. They have put our livelihoods at risk. It is very difficult to function. Meanwhile, South Carolina was extremely conservative. We did take care of our health. We were making sure to do all the things at the time we were told to do, but our governor said, hey, we are not the same as all of these other states, both geographically, we are not the same with regard to how populated our cities are or how we live life. So for us, we found that restrictions were modified and or lifted much sooner. So as a result of that, people were able to still gain in their income, they could still run their businesses, and we found that our state just overall economically fared better. So as news of how our governor was handling this got out, we found that many people were wanting to move to our state. Well, that was super exciting. We were so glad to have them here, but guess what? 2019, we already didn't have enough homes for the buyers that were already in our local market. So then we start bringing all these buyers from all over the country in 2020, and we were like, we really don't have enough homes for sale. Now, I heard something many years ago in my career, and I laughed when I heard it because it felt funny, but it's so true. The only thing we're not making anything more of is land. When the land is gone, the land is gone. So at that time in 2020, land was pretty affordable, and it wasn't uncommon that you could find a half acre or an acre of land if you wanted it. Well, as the market really began to take shape, people were finding themselves, and if you don't know what this is, in bidding wars. Bidding wars more or less were situations where one buyer wanted to buy a home. Well, there were 12 other buyers just like them that wanted to buy the same home, and there were no other homes for sale. So buyers were paying more for those homes. They were making these really attractive offers to sellers. So a lot of times buyers would be in this cycle of seeing a home, making an offer, offering really good terms over and over and over again, and missing out because there was so much demand in the marketplace. So what started happening is these buyers who'd been trying to get a home for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, they would say, I am tired of outbidding everyone and still not getting these homes, and I just want to have a home. So I had never thought about building, but now I'm thinking maybe I should build a home, because it's better than to know that at the end of a particular period of time, I'm actually going to have a house and I'm going to know what I'm paying for it. I just don't have to make these crazy offers. So we start seeing buyers turn to new construction. Now, at that time as well, developers and builders were getting very savvy and realizing there was a need. So they are quickly starting to buy up the available property. Now, when does a developer, when does a builder, when do they really profit? When they can put a lot of homes in a particular area. And at that time, what we were seeing is there were really 2 products. There was either a home with half an acre or more or close to that, so a really big piece of land maybe, but the homes were built in the 90s or early 2000s, so they were dated, maybe they needed a new roof or HVAC or something like that. Or we had these builders building these homes that were on small yards, maybe like a quarter of an acre or less, like 0.13. You'll hear people call those a 0 lot line. And they were putting these really beautiful, nice homes on them, but they were small lots. They could pack more homes into these subdivisions to have more sales based upon the demand. So you were really looking at one or two of those products, and as construction has continued, even when you hear you get half an acre, you do, but generally when we think half acre, we think a wide lot, we think we're not super close to our neighbors, and really what they're often doing is doing these long skinny lots, so you're still close to your neighbor, but maybe you have a deep backyard or a deep front yard. But that's what they started to do to create more opportunities for housing because there was a true demand. So a lot of times what happens is when buyers are dreaming of coming here, they have one or two thoughts predominantly. I want a really big yard and I don't want to have to do a lot to a home. Most people are not thinking they want to renovate. So in a particular price point, you're going to continue to see something like I have a client right now, they're shopping at $300,000. Here are their options. Either brand new home, super cute, cookie cutter. Houses one on top of another, they all look pretty similar, but the home aesthetically is attractive. They're not gonna be worried about a roof or changing their HVAC anytime soon because the homes are all under 5 years old. The other option they have, if they want a little more land, maybe they wanna be walkable distance to downtown, they're gonna spend that much money or really a little bit more, and the house is gonna be notably smaller, it's going to be older, and it's going to need some updates, usually cosmetic. Now it may need a roof or an HVAC or be close to that, but basically they're gonna pay the same amount of money or a little bit more, but the location's maybe gonna be slightly superior, the land's gonna be slightly larger, but the home is going to be inferior. So you're trying to figure out, do I want to have overhead costs for the house and aesthetics and possibly the mechanicals and have to spend more money on top of my budget, but I will have more land? Or do I want to know that the house I'm going to get largely will not need anything unless I have just an aesthetic preference, but I'm going to have a really small yard? Now, it's like, well, does that exist at every price point? Can I ever get both? Yes, but you're going to go up in price pretty notably. In fact, for this particular buyer, to get the home and the lot size and the location they want, we're going up anywhere from $75,000 to $100,000 higher on their budget. So just understanding that if land becomes a driving force for what it is you're buying, then know that your price is going to increase because this area is very much in demand. Now, is there a situation where you can have more land and a nicer house? Yes-ish, if you're willing to wait. And the reason I say that is you can go to these areas that are far more rural or spread out, not really close to town. But also a lot of people who are reaching out aren't thinking about that. They're thinking they want to be close to Greenville. They're thinking they want to be close to shopping. They're not thinking I want to live 30 or 40 minutes away from shopping or 50 minutes away from a town or the art center or something like that. But you can absolutely find more land if you go out further from the bigger cities. Now, what I will add to that, the reason I said yes and no, naturally there's more land, but usually the caveats here are the land is unrestricted for one, and if it's rural, that means you might have this beautifully built home, but then nearby you're gonna have single wides, you're gonna have trailers, mobile homes, things maybe that have been a little abandoned. Because the land is unrestricted, which is great. You can have a lot of land and you can control your land, but also everybody else's land is unrestricted. And these are areas that have not been as developed. That's why they're considered to be rural. The other thing with this is you're not usually finding newly built homes with all these great aesthetics out in the middle of nowhere or where there's a lot of land. You're gonna see more of that in town usually, or the homes that are further out that might have even 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 acres. They're usually older brick ranches from the 70s or 80s. Some have been partially updated, or maybe they were updated in the early 2000s, but they're still considered dated. Maybe there's some wallpaper, some border, some pink tile, you never know. So that's the biggest thing, is if land becomes a driving force for you, knowing that either you're going to paying a premium for the house and the land, and usually you're going to be a little more rural, not quite into town in those places where you might want to shop. Now, that leads me to my next thing. A lot of times people think they want more land, or they say this because they don't want to be in a subdivision with an HOA. Now, HOA stands for Homeowners Association. And really quickly, I want to define something that people often don't know. You may see online that there's an HOA fee and a regime fee. So let's talk about this. If you're in a community that has a regime fee, what that means is there's a monthly fee, and usually it's covering something that's like an ongoing regular cost. Like maybe in that community, everybody is required to have their lawn maintained by a third-party company. And so you pay $165 a month but they cut your grass, they edge, maybe they trim your bushes, those sort of things, okay? That's a monthly regime fee, which could be in addition to a yearly HOA fee, or sometimes you have a yearly HOA fee and not a regime fee. An HOA fee might be to pay for the lights at the entrance or paving the sidewalks if you have those. Maybe it's $400 a year for that, or maybe it's $800 a year because you have a community pool or pickleball court or something like that. So you may have some of those fees, but usually when people think about an HOA, the first thing that comes to their mind is, I don't want restrictions. I don't want someone telling me what I can do with my home. So it's always worth having a deeper conversation, because a lot of times where I hear this most strongly are for buyers that are coming from Florida. It has been my understanding over the years that Florida has very strict HOAs for the most part. They will come in and tell you where your trash can needs to be, not just that it's not visible from the street, but where they want it, what you need to do with your yard. I've heard crazy stories about the HOA coming into people's fenced backyards and digging up their gardens, just crazy stuff. There is a place for an HOA, and this is what I will tell people. There are different types. There are some that are far more strict and they have strict restrictions, and you'll want to investigate with your agent if that's something that you want to avoid. But there are also some where they have some general rules. They're not hyper strict, but more or less they're keeping things like not letting people put cars on blocks in their front yard, or letting their grass grow up 12 feet high. Like, it's okay if your grass gets high for a period of time, but not like covering the house. Or, you know, when they change out a stove or a toilet, they toss it in the side yard or they toss it in the front yard. It prevents things like that. So there are HOAs that are super strict, but there are also some with just some minimal restrictions and not a ton of rules. And I would say it's always worth investigating, because most of our communities in the Upstate, unless they're in a totally rural, unrestricted area, most of them will have some restrictions. And restrictions aren't all bad, because it actually helps your value if you have rules that prevent things like what I mentioned, where it is like a car on blocks or an old, you know, toilet or something being thrown in the front yard. That would negatively impact property values. So it's nice to have just some structure in place to avoid that, but as long as the cost annually is not super high. So it is good to investigate. Don't assume all HOAs are bad, but also understand that unless the home is pretty rural, so not necessarily close to Greenville or right in the hub of TR or Clemson or Anderson, a lot of the communities do have some level of HOA. And side note, even if you're looking at acreage that is rural, still look, because there may not be covenants that are specific to a subdivision, but you may have something known as deed restrictions. We actually see that a lot in our very rural parts. You might have had a family who for years owned 100 acres. And then over time, they have slowly cut off tracts of land to sell. But I've seen all sorts of crazy things. Recently, I saw that they really didn't have any rules except that you could never put a fireworks stand on the property. And I found out that's because the originating property owners owned a fireworks stand. So they didn't want to sell to someone who would become their competition. You'll have rules that with certain tracts of land, you can't have pigs, goats, or chickens, because they don't want animals that are maybe a little smelly with the breeze that might come, the cross breeze, to bring the smells down to the other people's properties. So you could have restrictions like that. So even though that's not necessarily telling you what to do with your home, you'll want to know if there's any restriction or deed restriction on how you can use the property. Or sometimes you're thinking, hey, I want a piece of land from my home, and then I want my mom and dad to build a house beside me. But sometimes even if it's 10 acres, they'll say you can only have one dwelling unit or one house on that property. So you could not even have another house on that property, and they may forbid you from subdividing, which means taking your land and cutting it into a smaller portion to then have another house on that other property. So you always want to know about any potential deed restrictions, but obviously the further out you go, the fewer restrictions you have. But not all HOAs are bad or created equally. So let's just take a quick look at a map. So right here, what you see is Greenville, and this is when a lot of people are looking at the area. That's what they're thinking about. They're thinking about this Greenville proper area. Okay, so we have a lot of areas that are beyond the Greenville market. If you can tell right now, it's actually outlined in red. So in Greenville, you have like what's up to the north over to Taylor's. You have Greer. Over here, kind of just right above Greenville, but a little to the left, you have Travelers Rest. And then over here, you have like the Cliffs communities. You have Easley. I mentioned Berea in the past in other videos. Powdersville. You're just seeing there are a lot of smaller suburbs we've talked about before. Piedmont is located here. Pelzer, Williamstown, Houston. Down here further, you're gonna have Belton, you're gonna have Anderson. Over here, we're gonna have Fountain Inn. This is really growing, the Malden area. So you have a lot of areas that are just really growing in Greenville. But as you are further out, okay, so not right in this like hyper red area right here, as you go out a little bit further, you're going to see that you're gonna have a little more land. As you are closer into Greenville proper, or as you're in one of these cities that have cute downtowns. I know that sounds crazy, but the easiest way to know if property values are going to be more expensive is this. Are you ready? This is my life hack. If you're just wondering, you can apply this pretty much, I think, anywhere in the United States. If, okay, you are near a Starbucks, a Target, and in our area, Chick-fil-A. We have a lot of Chick-fil-A's here. If you don't know about Chick-fil-A, you will when you move here, okay? So basically, these big companies, they use these demographic studies to determine where they're going to plop their Targets, their Whole Foods, their Chick-fil-A's. And so they've determined that there's enough wealth in that area and growth in that area to support these. Well, when there's wealth and all that occurring, property values are higher. So if you see a lot of those nearby, you're in good shape and you know the land's gonna be a little bit more expensive. Now, if it's further out and all you can find is a Dollar Tree or a Dollar General and there's not a lot else there, property values are going to be more affordable. So it's kind of your life hack. Also, how close is it to Greenville or kind of these hubs where everything is? If it's gonna be within 30 minutes, it's gonna be more expensive the closer you get into it. And then I mentioned your downtown. Downtowns know when there's wealth coming to an area and when people are spending their money and it's growing. So what will happen is they will start to put money into their downtown markets, right? So as you start to see some of these really cute downtowns like Greer and Travelers Rest and Anderson, and we're starting to see some of the other smaller towns develop more and more, just know that the cuter they are, the more they have to do. That means that they've established there's wealth in that marketplace. They're putting more money into their downtown. That also means that the real estate surrounding that area is going to become more expensive as well. So just using those two things, if you're seeing, oh, I love this downtown, it's so cute, be thinking property values are gonna be higher there. And if you're seeing a lot of these big chains, just know that there's a reason they're there. But if you're seeing Dollar Generals or not a lot else, know that you're probably in a really good spot to get a better deal there on your land. It's also probably unrestricted. You're probably also avoiding HOA fees, but you're also probably looking at some older homes as well. So I am going to show you though, in the Anderson market, because Anderson I feel like gets a lot of love. It's not super far from Greenville. It's pretty big, so you could just live in Anderson and enjoy Anderson and go to the cute downtown. You also can be within 20 to 30 minutes of Greenville depending upon where you live in Anderson, sometimes a little further away. But people often say Anderson's a little bit more affordable, but it's not far away from Greenville. And so a lot of times when people are first looking to live in Greenville, but they say, hey, we want to be a little more spread out, then they start to consider Anderson. Now, sometimes they'll also go further north and they'll consider Taylor's or Greer. Those are great spots as well, but they tend to have more traffic and their property taxes are a little bit higher, negligibly, but a little bit higher. So then if people want to save money on those property taxes, they're like, okay, well, let's go south of Greenville to Anderson. And today we're going to take a look at two homes. And we talked about price point. You're going to see for just a little over $500,000 in an amenity-rich community, if you're willing to live out a little further, what you can buy. And we're also going to take a look at just under $400,000 new construction, what you can get if you're willing to live out just a little bit further. I would say the one that's $400,000, you're going to see it doesn't feel as far out because you do still have grocery stores and things like that nearby. The other one is its own unique community and it's awesome, but just know you're a little further out, but that's okay because the community has a lot to offer. So let's hop out of here and go take a look at these properties.
Have you been thinking about living in South Carolina? Well, today I'm going to show you the kind of lifestyle you can have for under $600,000. Chickasaw Point is an amenity-rich community with home values ranging from over $300,000 to over $1 million. From waterfront homes to golf course homes to homes nearby the incredible number of amenities, this community is nothing short of special. This community is beloved for its remote location, away from the hustle and bustle of everyday life. However, you will not lack access to important things like golf apparel or club maintenance, as there's an on-site pro shop within the clubhouse. Homeowners also have access to use the clubhouse for events. Don't feel like cooking? The new Overlook Restaurant and Bar is also located within the clubhouse and offers a seasonal menu as well as daily menus and a par 5 menu. Whether you want to engage in a challenging 18-hole, 72-par golf course or take a swim in the Olympic-sized swimming pool, or play at the Chickapaws dog park with your furry friend, or check out the community beach and picnic pavilion area, or pick up a game of tennis or pickleball. You can do all of these things and more in Chickasaw Point. A benefit to an established community like Chickasaw Point is that you get to enjoy mature landscaping and beautiful tree canopies. Many homes are older, but today I'm going to show you a renovated home, and if you're looking for lots of space or a multifamily option, you're going to love how this home easily serves many people well.
Breaking me down. Don't know what I should do when you come around. I'm leaving without your love. I have no choice. I know I'm being lied to. I just need some time to stop thinking about you. My heart just dropped, thinking about you. Just stops.
Are you looking for a lifestyle change? Well, Chickasaw Point may be the lifestyle change for you.
Just dropped.
Okay, so we just took a look at a home that was a little over $500,000, and like I mentioned, there was more space between the homes. The home was updated. However, it is a little further out there. To be candid, you're going to be about 30 minutes from big shopping and hospitals as well. Now, of course, there was still a Dollar General nearby, and one of the big perks with this community is there are a lot of community amenities, even a restaurant. So things to do there, but you're a little further out. Now, let's say you say, Tammy, I still want a more custom finished home. I don't want a cookie cutter home. I don't want to be on top of my neighbor, and I don't want to be quite that far out. Well, for just under $400,000, you can find that in Anderson as well. Of course, like we mentioned, as you get closer into town, the price is going to go up, the house is going to get smaller, maybe older, but this is still out far enough that you can get a really good deal in all those things, and you're still close to shopping and hospitals, and only about 10 to 15 minutes from downtown, depending upon how fast you drive. So take a look.
Some turned out at a hard place. Seemed like the real thing all mystified. Much mistrust love's gone behind. In between, what I find is if I fear I'm losing you, it's just not good. You're dancing like you do. Soon found out I was losing my mind. Do a thing, but I was so blind.
Okay, so one of my favorite things is that this is a highly functional kitchen. You have your microwave, but it's hidden. It's tucked away in the island, so you still have this awesome chef stove with this great custom hood. And that's super important because your kitchen is open to your living room, so you want it to look nice. I love the stacked stone fireplace, gas logs, cedar mantle, perfect for the holidays. So this full glass shower with custom tile is awesome, plus the double vanity and your private water closet.
Okay, so our big takeaway today is this. You can find a larger home in South Carolina, all right? You can find a home without lots of restrictions and people telling you what to do with your home and how to use it and if you need permission for this or that. And you can find a really good affordable house in the great state of South Carolina in the Upstate region. However, if you want all those things, you're gonna be a little further out on the outskirts. If proximity to downtown, any downtown, Greenville downtown, Anderson, Greer, Taylor's, well, there's not really Taylor's downtown, it's like the Greer downtown. But any of these cities, if you wanna be closer to the downtown area, just know that you're either gonna pay a lot more, like maybe $75,000 to $100,000 more to have all of those things and be right in the downtown area, or you're also gonna have very limited inventory, or you're gonna look at maybe just being a little further out because you can get those things by being a little more rural. Not rural like super far always, but a little further out than maybe you're anticipating. So whether you're looking to move in 9 days or 90 days or later on this year, my team and I would love to connect, so please take a look at the info in the description. We love to connect by Zoom. We can do a phone call as well, but we would love to connect either way and talk to you about lifestyle and living in the upstate of South Carolina.